Hi, everybody, and welcome to. Oh, sorry about that. I apologize. I apologize there. I think I was looking at the awful announcing
Mm.
uh, web page there. So I apologize for the impromptu opening of the Double 18 podcast live stream edition. I'm your host, Stephen Nagishi, along with my co-host on the right of my screen here from Alpha Announcing. Speaking of which, the associate editor, Ken Fang himself. Kang, good to catch up with you. I appreciate you doing this on Monday, obviously, because of my impromptu work schedule that had me working the last two Sundays. Just wanted to let you know, at least I am off this Sunday. So at least for this Thanksgiving week, we can kind of go back to doing Sundays if you're available. I'm not sure you're doing family outings or something like that.
I am available, so I'm very happy.
All right. Well, let's look into it because at least for Sunday, my Bears are not playing, and at least we could do a little bit earlier because obviously I think the Browns are also in an earlier time slot on the 30th of this week. So, all right, Ken, listen, we got a lot to talk about. NFL Week 12. Is in the books, with the exception of San Francisco and Carolina later tonight on Monday Night Football. Your Browns stole the high headline this past week because of Shedeur Sanders' finally, I should say, Shedeur Sanders made his NFL debut, and it was against the Las Vegas Raiders, which obviously was an easier opponent per se, and he did get his taste of the NFL the week before against Baltimore, which he came in for Dylan Gabriel, who suffered a concussion, and now Shedeur, after leading the Browns to a 24-10 win over the Las Vegas Raiders, he is now the starting quarterback against the San Francisco 49ers this Sunday. Ken, give me your thoughts on the Browns finally turning over to Shedeur Sanders. He had a full week of practice. We know he has never been shy of his confidence because he's got it, that swagger from none other than his father, Deion Sanders, where he played collegiately all his career, starting with Jackson State and came over to Colorado with him. Mm-hmm. How do you describe his full NFL debut and of his performance in which he led the Cleveland Browns to a victory for the first time in a while?
Well, I'm going to say it was a very good debut. I mean, it wasn't great. He threw an interception early, but I have to say that Shedeur played within himself. He didn't try to do too much, and he knew he had a great defense, which had 10 sacks last night against Geno Smith, who looked just absolutely horrible. But I got to say, when you have the opportunity to, Stephen, to do the job, and he threw his first touchdown pass. Granted, it was a yards after catch play, but and he also did a great play by running in the first half, throwing deep. He used his rookies yesterday, his rookies wide receivers, which probably he was practicing with a lot in the practice squad.
That big bomb to Isaiah Bond was very good.
Yeah. I have to say he played within himself. Granted, this was the Las Vegas Raiders who fired Chip Kelly. I didn't know that the offensive coordinator was Chip Kelly, but he was getting $8 million a year. But I don't know what his buyout was, but he was fired as a result of yesterday. But got to say that the Browns for one day looked very good and looked like they have some potential. Now they're going to play the San Francisco 49ers, who are playing tonight against Carolina in their next game. Granted, the Niners are going to be flying east to take on the Browns in a 1:00 game, which would be 10:00 49ers time. So that'll be on Sunday. We'll see how Shedeur plays, if he does play. Kevin Stefanski is playing coy right now. We'll discuss that a little bit later, Stephen. But overall, I have to say, Shedeur played within himself. He didn't try to do too much. He just let the plays come to him. He shook off that one interception early in the first half, and he didn't have to do everything because his defense did a great job. Again, 10 sacks against Geno Smith. It's a great defense. They're going to have the defensive player in the year in Myles Garrett. They're also going to have the defensive rookie of the year as well. They've got if now granted, I don't want to get everybody thinking, oh, well, they should have had Shedeur Sanders in for the entire year. No, that's not the case. Absolutely not. So this is one game. He had a great debut against a very bad team. He's going to have to play against a mid-level team and a team that's going to be vying for the playoffs next week in the San Francisco 49ers, which have a much better defense than the Raiders. So let's see how he does then. But I got to say, there was some optimism after yesterday, Stephen. I was very thrilled to see what I saw yesterday, especially after a very bad preseason by Shedeur Sanders and a very bad performance last week when he had to come in. Granted, it was on an injury situation. It was a backup situation. So he really didn't practice with the first team. But what he showed yesterday, I was quite impressed.
Mm-hmm. I think we have to kind of take into consideration
it was a race
about, the who the opponent was. It was the the Las Vegas Raiders, mind you. And the Raiders are a horrible team. They fired Chip Kelly last night. They've fired a special teams coach a couple of weeks ago after a Thursday night game against the Denver Broncos a couple of weeks ago. They've also fired another coach that I'm not aware of right now. So you have to take that in with a grain of salt. Again, this was a performance that's not going to anoint him as a long-term starter, but finally, I think the Cleveland Browns, relented, which was somewhat helped out because Dillon Gabriel's concussion, which is unfortunate, but in a way, it's fortunate for for the Browns organization because at least now they can have a full evaluation of Shedeur Sanders the rest of the season. And I think with this win, he earned that opportunity. Now the Browns are basically trying to see what they have in him. With the season somewhat unfortunately lost right now. It's time for the Cleveland Browns to fully go all in, on what they have in Shedeur Sanders. They sit at 3-8. Certainly the defense has been lights out. They had 10 sacks yesterday against the Raiders. Myles Garrett is on pace to break the NFL sack record that was set by, I believe, Michael Strahan a long time ago. And Myles is his talent is certainly being wasted in a current situation, which is unfortunate. But of course, when you're getting paid $40 million, you're going to have to kind of learn to deal with it. But even I think there is a an internal optimism inside the Cleveland organization that I think the fans are and the are really excited about. They finally have at least something to look forward to for the rest of the season, rather than the typical, the loss this week. Actually, the season that's already lost, but at least it's a loss that that they have something to look forward to, for the rest of the season. It's not just the season that's just going to be all losses and no hope. At least Shedeur Sanders gives you that hope. He brought the excitement on that big play passing that we saw. There's a Cleveland, there's certainly, I think, an improvement from the time she started in the preseason, that he looked like he was not aware of what he was doing out there.
Yeah.
So, once you can't change what you have around him. The receivers. Jerry Jeudy had a big catch, and then he was just casually walking and had the ball knocked out with the
Stupid.
punch.
Stupid.
It was very, very bad. And overall, you
Yeah.
have very good running back in Quinshawn Junkins. So I'm very curious to see what Stefanski has in his mind. The offense will revolve around with what this Tommy Reese, the offensive coordinator, has in his mind. There are some good storylines, I think, for the Browns fans to look forward to for the rest of the season.
100%, Stephen. And I have to say that for the first time, I feel optimism. Okay, I did feel optimism after they beat Green Bay, and also that first win against Baltimore. But I have to say, since then, it's been a very difficult season. They had a chance to beat Pittsburgh, which they didn't get the job done. Now they have, and again, I have to temper this. They beat the Las Vegas Raiders, a very bad football team. Geno Smith didn't look very good yesterday. He got hit constantly. Myles Garrett was teeing off. That whole defense was teeing off on a very bad quarterback in Geno Smith. That offensive line just can't protect him. He looked old out there. But I have to say that to be honest with you, Stephen, Shedeur Sanders, at least for one day, looked like the potential of a good quarterback. I'm not going to say great. I can't say that. He's in a rookie season. He's in his first season. But he didn't have to go above and beyond. He knew the defense was going to give him a chance to make plays. He didn't have to go out there and be like in Colorado, be Mr. Everything and try to outscore teams 35-40-10. All he had to do was play within the system. The offense was simplified for him. So all he had to do was just make a couple of rollouts and make a play. Other than that, wildcat at the goal line, that's fine. He didn't have to do the running, save his body, save his arm. And I think now, again, San Francisco will be ready for him. It's like when he played his first preseason game, everyone was saying, oh, this is going to be the greatest thing. No, they were ready for it. The defenses were ready for him in the second preseason start. They will be the Niners will be ready for him next week. And you got to know, even though they're playing Carolina, some of those coaches right now are scouting and looking at that tape from yesterday and saying, how can we make sure and hurry, give a little, because Las Vegas didn't give any rush towards Shedeur Sanders. They didn't hurry him. They didn't rush him. For sure that San Francisco will be ready for him. They're going to be rushing him. They're going to be try to hurry him. They're going to confuse him. They're going to show some cover two. They're going to show some different schemes out there that are going to try and confuse him and try to make Shedeur Sanders beat them. You're going to do that, you're going to win a ball game, to be honest with you. I really think so, because right now, Cleveland, as you mentioned, just doesn't have the offensive weapons that they really need for him. And, they're going to try and make Shedeur Sanders beat them. You can be rest assured that's what San Francisco is going to try and do next week.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to my Bears. Another nail biter against Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. The AFC North race just got a lot tighter now because Baltimore, who started off 1-5, are now have reeled off 5 straight wins, one of which, of course, was against the Chicago Bears not too long ago. 31-28 over the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers did not start. He tried his darnest to try and, crown the city and the Bears organization one more time. But doctor said, no, your left wrist is not good. And certainly he did a classy gesture, giving the finger to the media during a walk around. But overall, I saw the game from start to finish. And I got to tell you, it wasn't the best game. First of all, we know the storyline. All of our linebackers were out. It's shocking. You like the entire linebacking core, all the starters were out, and we got a bunch of third, fourth, or even fifth backups. Just playing out. These backups who rarely play or basically strictly as special teamers most of the time, play the entire 60 minutes, and it was and it was not looking good from the very beginning because you had Steelers with Mason Rudolph. He's not exactly a big guy with a big arm. He might be able to push down the field, but the Steelers did not do that at all. Instead, they just basically went with dink and dunk. A lot of screen passes, short passes, check downs, and the linebackers, unfortunately, were unable to get there on time to stop these things. And the first half it looked pretty bleak. When Caleb got sacked by
in the end,
TJ Watt, and then lost the ball and had to recover for a touchdown. It did not look good. At least one thing I found that very encouraging was 2 times when the Bears had the turnover against the Steelers, they scored 2 touchdowns off of it, which was very, very encouraging. So, in the past, I think, when you had these opportunities with the Bears, you just don't see this team capitalize on these opportunities, this year. So that was very encouraging, with Caleb Williams leading down the field to, finish off a drive. He didn't have his best game statistically. He was, again, sailing some of the passes. Some of the receivers were unable to corral it, or dropped it again. But, if you look at the numbers from a percentage wise, completion wise, it was just barely over 50%. 3 touchdowns, just one bad fumble in the end zone that nearly costed the team, unfortunately. On that one, I get it. You got to be able to just get rid of the ball or just, just don't do anything to hurt your team. But other than that, go ahead.
I got to say, Stephen, though, that it seems like Caleb Williams has the right coach. Finally, he's got Ben Johnson, we saw what he did with Jared Goff. We see that he's a guy who can develop quarterbacks. He's a quarterback-friendly coach. This is the type of coach that Caleb Williams needed. And I gotta say, we're not seeing the herky-jerky motion that he was doing last season. We're now seeing a guy who seems to go over to him and say, hey, look, forget about the interception. Forget about what you did in the end zone. You know what to do. Play within yourself. That touchdown pass he made into that put the Bears ahead was a thing of beauty, Stephen. I don't think you would have seen that last year. I really don't. I think this is a maturity of a quarterback that we're seeing right before our eyes. And to really be honest with you, if he continues to play like this, I know that we have to temper last week. We tempered last week by saying the Bears, even though they're ahead of the division, they're going to have some difficulty. But you know what? With Minnesota playing like the way that they are, with JJ McCarthy just regressing. I don't know what happened to him, but he was making some bad plays yesterday.
He was, yeah.
Detroit just barely coming back against the Giants yesterday. And Jordan Love, there's a lot of questions about him. I have to say, Stephen, right now, if Chicago, I know that they're against better teams in the playoffs, you can't play like this. You can't come back, because when you put yourselves in holes like this, you're going to get beat. But right now in the regular season, I gotta say the Bears. I think they have a very good chance of winning this division. To be honest with you, I know Green Bay and Detroit. A lot of people think Detroit can come back, and they're gonna. We have to see how they're gonna do against this Thanksgiving against Green Bay. That's going to be a very interesting matchup, especially in Detroit. But I really got to say, if Chicago's got a lot of confidence, they know that when they're down, and Caleb Williams can bring them back. Again, you can't do this in the playoffs. You got better teams. You're going to get in a hole. You're going to stay in the hole. But right now, to be honest with you, I got to say that Chicago has to be. You got to say, with the way that the other teams are playing in this division, and they're regressing, Chicago may have a pretty good shot at winning this division, Stephen. I have to say that.
I agree. Here's what the ESPN, NFL ESPN crew had to say about the Bears and the Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams.
Is that Dan Orlovsky?
Because early on in the offseason, Ben Johnson said he threw everything at Caleb, and they were going to start to kind of peel the onion back as the season approached. And now we're seeing that open up. The thing I always wondered was, how will they marry all the stuff we saw with Jared Goff work from the under center perspective in Detroit with what Caleb does well, which is the shotgun. And I felt like yesterday, after the sack fumble that turned into a touchdown for Pittsburgh, we saw the full gamut of what Ben loves to do and Caleb. And I love that point because
Yeah, I think the Caleb wants to be great, and Ben is the right coach. Now, the number wise, they probably won't show up at least this year. Technically, I think what happened last year with Matt Eberflus and all the disaster that went through, was basically a wasted throwaway year. So this is literally like his, in his technically his second year, but he's like a first year with Ben Johnson, and everything that he went through with all the bad stuff. He wasn't coached properly. Those things are, being, flushed out of his system, and the numbers are probably not going to show it. Okay, maybe he doesn't throw, just because he doesn't throw 300 yards doesn't mean he had a bad game. Certainly the percentage wise, I would like to see him hit more deep passes. There's no question about it. The percentage of the completion, I'd like to see a little bit more of that. But that's just not on Caleb Williams himself. I've said this before. The receivers drop a lot of passes with the Bears. It's unfortunate how many big plays up they have left on the table. But I do like the direction this team is going. Listen, you can only control the opponent that your schedule. Again, every year it's different. The team that won the division or at least won a playoff a year before, they're different because of the age, the injuries, and the coaching changes, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe the next year, the Bears could find themselves in that same position where they're regressing, but at least with Ben Johnson, you have a genuine leader who has completely changed the culture of the Chicago Bears in just short amount of time, and it's just a breath of fresh air. Unfortunately, we already went through that with Matt Nagy, but unlike that team in 2018. When the Bears won their division in their first year with Nagy and Mitch Trubisky, I think this is a team that's built for the long haul. Both Trubisky and Nagy fizzled after that first year. They peaked too early, unfortunately. But I think, this is a legitimate long-term contender that the Bears have on this roster. The skill positions are really excellent. The rookies are contributing. Kyle Mananga, the running back, and Colston Loveland, the tight end. Even Ozzie Trapello played pretty well as a left tackle yesterday as a rookie, and with Theo Benedict out. So now the real challenge begins. The next 6 games. I'm sorry. In Philadelphia this Friday, Black Friday.
Yeah,
I give the Bears at least a pretty good shot at winning because the Eagles are reeling after losing to the Cowboys, which we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah,
and then you have Green Bay twice, Detroit at home. We play your Browns in between,
right?
And then we still have a road trip to San Francisco on the next to last game of the season. So there are some real challenges ahead, but. And for me personally, even if the Bears only get, maybe like 3 or, 3-3 or, the rest of the way, if you're lucky, that's 11-6. That's a hell of a better record than any of us even imagined, myself included as a Bears fan. So that will put you in the playoffs. I'm very curious to see.
And it may win the division for you, to be honest with you. It could.
Well, I don't know, Ken. I'm not there yet. I'm very cautious about it. So, after this, week against the Eagles, you go to Green Bay, which, by the way, has been flexed to 4:25 the next Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to be on Fox.
Right. It will be on Fox game of the week. So that's a huge challenge. At least the Bears beat the Packers last year on the last game of the season. And so they're no longer scared of the Packers, and Packers themselves are, inconsistent offensively.
They're not a good team right now, Steven. And I got to say, Jordan Love is is really shaky out there.
Yeah.
They barely beat the Giants, but again, Detroit almost just barely beat the Giants in 2 consecutive weeks. So I gotta say, and yes, Green Bay beat Minnesota yesterday, but
Yeah.
again, Minnesota is not a good team. Minnesota has got a long ways to go. So, and JJ McCarthy is just making throws out there that I just can't explain. So I
Yeah.
gotta say that the Bears. I have to say, if the Bears, I know I said this earlier. You can't fall in a hole right now as you're doing right now, but I don't see right now anybody else taking control of this division. I really don't. So I know that you're trying to be you're cautiously optimistic, but I'm going to say it right now. I say that if the Bears continue to play this way, continue to win, and the other teams falter, maybe Detroit can get on a winning streak and can get hot. But I don't see Minnesota and Green Bay doing it. I really don't. So I have to say that Chicago has a really good shot, a really, really good shot at getting into the postseason.
Well, this Thursday it's the annual Thanksgiving, so the Packers and the Lions face each other to kick off the holiday slate. I think the winner of that game, the first game between the Packers and the Lions, they'll have a inside track into the NFC North, and hopefully the Bears, win or lose, they'll still be in the division race, but. I think the winner of the Packers-Lions game will give us a pretty good idea who might be still in the running for the NFC North title. And then the Bears play the very next day on Black Friday.
Yeah,
So it's going to be a very, very interesting games with so much playoff implication. All right, let's look at the other games. This week, the New England Patriots had a nail biter. They beat the Cincinnati Bengals 26-20 on the road. Joe Burrow was rumored to be starting, but they decided to pull him off, and it was a smart move.
Yeah.
And what do you think about Patriots and their record and where they are right now?
Well, I know my friend Eric Carr, I think is watching today. He's my friend who works with me. He's a Miami Dolphins fan. And I am, as you well know, Browns fan. We both live in the belly of the beast of a very arrogant fan base of the New England Patriots who think they invented football. So this is really horrible. The fact is they're 10-2. They're the number one seed in the AFC right now, Steven. You would not have bet on that at the beginning of the season. And if you say that you bet on that, I don't believe you, okay? Because there was no optimism. And don't forget, the Patriots lost to the Las Vegas Raiders in the first game of the season. So, so I don't think anybody would have bet this, But you know what? Hats off to the Patriots. They're playing within themselves. Now, granted, Drake May threw a very bad pick six to Cincinnati yesterday, but they're playing like the Belichick. I hate to say this. They're playing like the Belichick Patriots of old. They're doing their job. They know what their roles are. They're not making turnovers. They're not doing stupid penalties. They're not playing like they have been in the last few years of the Belichick years and also a couple of seasons ago. They are now playing like the Patriots are, and that's very dangerous for this AFC because you don't want the Patriots back on top of the AFC again because you don't want Tony Romo and Jim Nantz being – I mean, right now, Jim Nantz and Tony Romo are in the midst of a 4-game streak of calling Kansas City Chiefs games. They'll be doing another one this Thursday with Kansas City and Dallas, which will probably be the most watched game. Probably, to be honest with you, that will be one of the most watched games in the history of the NFL. That's what we expect with the new rating system, Steven. So I got to say, you don't want the Patriots. I'm going to tell you this right now. You don't want the Patriots back on top of the AFC East because Mike Vrabel and the Patriots have a lot of cap space and they can get a lot of players and they're being very smart right now and they're biding their time. You think everyone thought this is going to be a transition year for the Patriots. They are now ahead of schedule and that's not good news for anybody. And the fact that the Chiefs are down right now, they're probably going to barely make the playoffs after their win against Indianapolis yesterday. But I'm going to tell you, if you the entire league had a chance to keep the Patriots down, they are now 10-2 on top of the AFC East. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. They will get to the AFC Championship, but man, look out, because the Patriots are set for a long time to come, with not only with the draft picks that they are setting up, and with the drafts and with the cap space that they have. You better watch out, because if you got tired of the Kansas City Chiefs, you're going to be tired again of the New England Patriots, because they are set for a long run for the rest of this decade and well into the 2030s. Watch out, because this team is set, and with Drake May and the way that this team is playing, and they have their quarterback, watch out, folks. The Patriots may be on top for a very long time.
Right, and especially with the Bills losing on Thursday,
Yeah.
The Texans, the Bills have a big hill to climb right now. And the Chiefs themselves, they were trailing and they looked like a dead in the water before they made a fourth quarter comeback and beat the Colts in overtime. Right now. Again, right now, would you put the Chiefs in the playoffs?
Yes.
I think they do.
Yeah, this was their playoff game. And you know what? They're going to set up now. They're going to go to Dallas, and that the Cowboys are coming off a high, beating the Philadelphia Eagles, and we'll talk about that game. Man, I'm very pissed off about that game. But anyway, I was watching a lot of that Chiefs game on Red Zone yesterday, Steven.
Yeah.
When Patrick Mahomes says, "Get on my back," he is going to carry the team to a win. And I don't know what the Colts were doing yesterday. They go up 20-9. They have a chance. You put your foot on the gas. You have a champion down. You have to put your foot on the neck and put your foot on the gas to keep going. I don't know what they did. All of a sudden, you have a great running back. You stopped using him. I don't know what happened. The Indianapolis Colts got 12 yards in the fourth quarter, and I don't know what happened. I really don't know. The AFC would have loved to have seen. I think the rest of the AFC would have loved to have seen the Kansas City Chiefs go down and be down and out. But now you've let them off the mat. This could be a run that puts the Chiefs into the playoffs. And I'm not going to put him in the Super Bowl. I really can't. But based on the 6-5 record right now, but Steven, this is a team that has a lot of confidence. They're flying high after yesterday's win. I'm going to say they're going to beat the Cowboys. I really think that's how great they feel. I think they're going to beat the Cowboys, and they're going to start a run. And you better watch out, because the Chiefs, you had a chance to put them down. The Colts didn't do it, and now the Chiefs are back up. Watch out. You're going to see a lot of Taylor Swift in the next few weeks.
Now, moving on to the other game, the Eagles and the Cowboys. This was America's
What the hell?
America's game of the week. The Eagles were running away with this one, till the second quarter, pretty much. It's tough to really get a sense of what this Eagles team was, Ken, to be honest with you. Look, I give Cowboys a lot of credit. They were they looked terrible. Dak Prescott was throwing picks in the end zone. CeeDee Lamb couldn't even catch a ball. Couldn't catch anything basically the entire game. And somehow, the Eagles shot themselves in the foot on several occasions. That the big punt, muff punt that the Cowboys, recovered inside the 10, but, Cowboys went for it on all four downs. And I don't know if they scored on that one. So, it was like, both teams just basically,
they didn't want to win the game.
Right. Didn't want to win the game until, the Cowboys finally got their, act together and won it on a Brandon Aubrey field goal with time expired. So, as you can see at the bottom of the screen on that one, with the Rams demolishing the Buccaneers, the Rams are clear number one team in the not just in the AFC, but I would just probably put the Rams at the very top of all the power rankings right now, of all the 32 teams, because they're just playing lights out right now. And meanwhile, the Eagles are kind of facing not the elimination, but they're facing the same Chicago Bears with an 8-3 record. Both teams are basically right now at the top of their division, basically competing at this point. It's preposterous to think that the Bears are actually competing with the Eagles on the second number 2 seed right now. This Friday, Black Friday, winner has the number 2 seed.
And that's going to be that's a standalone game. It's going to be on Amazon. It's going to be a lot of people watching that because,
and it's actually on the global. You can actually watch it globally too, by the way.
Yeah. And what's great about that, Stephen, is that this is going to be a potential showcase for Caleb Williams. And I know that Philadelphia Eagles defense is great. We saw what it did to Jared Goff a couple weeks ago. But if Caleb Williams can hit a couple of passes and get his confidence going, I have a feeling the Eagles can be picked off on this game. I really do. I think this is a trap game. I think the Bears can win this game. I really do. I do too. And I could, and this would be a huge win if they can win this game outright. I have a feeling this would be a huge confidence booster for the Bears, and that could take them all the way to the playoffs. I really do, because you beat the defending champion in their house, and that's going to be in Lincoln Financial Field. I have a feeling, Stephen, that and you have Al Michaels calling the game. You have Kirk Herbstreit. Amazon's going to be there. It's it's going to be against a lot of college football, but everyone's going to be watching the NFL that day. Yeah. It's good. And you have a traditional 2 powerhouses in the NFC, and it turns out to be a great matchup. It's turning out to be a really potentially great matchup, and I have a feeling. I think the Eagles are ripe for the picking in this game.
I do too. There was a news that Andrew Makuba, the outstanding rookie safety, is going to miss significant amount of time. His fellow teammate on the other safety position, Reed Blankenship, is hurt. There were a lot of players who were actually hurt. Lane Johnson is out of this game. Hopefully the Bears pass rush can wake up and do more damages there, without Lane Johnson there. Right. Saquon Barkley does not look like the same old Saquon from last year. I don't know if it's just the age or just basically the scheme. I just hope that the Bears defense is not the remedy for Saquon to go off and gain 150 yards rushing. That's one thing I'm worried about because of all the injuries to the defense. So, I do believe that because of that, the pressure's on Philly, no question. After yesterday's showing,
it's a must win for them.
It's a must win. There's no question. There's always been a drama surrounding them, even last year when they went to the Super Bowl. AJ Brown reading a book on the sideline because he's pissed about not getting the ball enough, and that's always been, and that says, carry on to this year as well. There's been some talks about him being pissed, and he's being very coy about it. And we get it. The receivers are diva. He just doesn't, feel like he's getting enough balls. I understand the frustration. Will it explode this Friday? If he drops it, or if the balls are not getting there on time, we'll see what happens there. But I look forward to this game. It wasn't really that good looking on paper because the Eagles are defending champions. The Bears are an upstart team, but now that they're both 8-3, there is a significant meaning for this game. This Friday, and I'm very, very excited about, watching it this Friday. So, tonight obviously is another big one. San Francisco trying to keep up in the wild card. You have Carolina Panthers that is currently leading the, very watered down NFC South, with Tampa kind of reeling, that you can actually get a leg up on the Tampa, obviously, with all the injuries, including Baker, who suffered a left shoulder strain yesterday. I'm going to pick the 49ers to win this one.
I agree. I think Carolina, Bryce Young coming in, the Panthers
are too inconsistent for me, right?
Yeah. And the Panthers can play up, and they have a potential to make a statement win against the Niners, but they're going to the West Coast. I'm going to pick the Niners in this one. I'll say the Niners will win this by a score of 29-17. You've got Brock Purdy playing again in tonight's game. Christian McCaffrey's a tough player. I think, is Kittle playing again? I think Kittle's in the game today. So I think that if Brock Purdy can get things done, not have to worry about another injury, And of course, they have Mac Jones too. But Purdy's going to be starting. Looking right now as I'm looking at NFL Countdown, Monday NFL Countdown right now. Purdy looking, he's taking throws, so I think he's ready. I'll be honest with you, Steven. I think that the Niners take this one easily.
All right. Yeah, I agree with the 49ers winning. Let's look at the other stories that really caught us in the this past week. Obviously, the big news we talked about the New England Patriots being the story this week. Certainly, with the emergence of Drake May and all of that. And speaking of Drake May, he got caught in a bit of a controversy this week about being asked. I think it all started with First Take on ESPN. Cam Newton calling the New England Patriots fool's gold, and sorry about this.
We're losing you a little bit.
I apologize. I was trying to open the announcing page there, and then the ad just keeps getting in, just like it bothered us in the opening there. So I apologize there. So basically what it was, Drake May was asked about it, and then he said, like, I think, not necessarily quoting everything, but he wasn't aware Cam Newton was or what channel he was on. And obviously that sent everybody at ESPN into a tizzy. And then, Stephen A was angry that, this is a #1 rated show in sports talk or whatever. Let's take that into context, Cam, because the show is at 10 o'clock in the morning. Okay. Everybody at 10 o'clock in the morning normally is at work, right?
Yeah.
So nobody's watching it except if you're either at a gym or at a workout or even at a like a moms and pops local eatery with the ESPN or what.
Right.
So for them to get into a tizzy and then getting angry over about
and
the
then
comments,
this type of stupid thing. Yeah, they create a.
It is. It's a real stupidity about just how far the the ESPN has fallen in the eyes of many people. If regular Joes like you and I aren't watching, you think the athletes are even paying attention? That early in the morning when they're either in the training facility getting treatments or just focusing on their video studies. It's just mind-boggling that how stupid this whole thing is. And the great irony in all of this is that Drake May used to love, or at least was idolized Cam Newton back then.
Right.
And irony is that Cam Newton did play 1 year with the New England Patriots, albeit it didn't work out for him, pretty, mind you. But so, give me your thoughts on all of this, about, the whole fiasco.
Excuse me. Excuse me. I didn't mean that. I gotta say, not a fan of Stephen A. Smith. You know that. I've talked about how much I'm not a fan of his at all. The programming, and again, it's ESPN trying to create a controversy over nothing. It's really silly. Drake May, he's got other things to worry about. And yeah, he probably said that in jest, or maybe he was serious about it. But for ESPN to try and take it to another level is just one of the dumbest things. Again, to create controversy, create content for a show that's 24/7 news cycle that they can try to not only start with First Take and then bring it through SportsCenter and then ESPN Radio. It's one of the dumbest things. And to be honest with you, it's really beyond ESPN, and really they shouldn't even try it. But again, it's for them to try and create content and trying to get clicks. And to be honest with you, I'm glad that people are seeing through it.
You can see the excuse me, Lauren Campbell from Mass Live. Stephen A. has already walked, tracking, what he said is like, I was being facetious because it wasn't a big deal. No, 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 you can't do that, bro. You make it a big deal out of it because you knew it was going to garner headlines. So
Right.
you can't take back what you just said. Okay, we've heard that. You meant it, and it's just unbelievable. Even Mike Vrabel was like hard to believe that First Take will be number one show on in television or one, at least from a sports talk perspective. So it's just embarrassing because L. Duncan of ESPN is now expected to be the new host of Netflix sports programming amidst her uncertain future with the ESPN. So ESPN continues to take the high road and go down any credibility that they have built up all these years, decades, that the shows that you and I and many of us grew up watching, and is being replaced with hot take artists Stephen A. and Cam Newton who dress up like I don't know what his deal is almost every day. And it's almost ridiculous. You accuse somebody, you accuse him of being a liar. This is what he said, the First Take is the number one morning show. Okay. You accuse him of being a liar. This is like seriously, liable for lawsuit, if it wasn't for, anything more. So,
Right. Right.
and it's simply embarrassing that ESPN, again, I cannot stress this enough, continues to go down this road, and the ESPN, continues to alienate the fans and the people who work hard, like Elle Duncan. She does have her detractors. I will admit, there's no question about it. But it's just sad that the ESPN's credibility and reputation continues to takes a significant hit.
Yeah. I mean, and not only that, I'll also mention that they have the WWE PLEs. They're not getting a good audience for it because they're pricing themselves out for their app, their ESPN Unlimited app. So people, I think, see through that. So I there's a lot of things that ESPN's got to work on, and I know that says stick to sports. They got hit on the political side for a while, and trying to create takes and create controversy is just silly, and it's really dumb. And Elle Duncan, who, as you mentioned, she has her own controversy, but there's a potential. Andrew Marchand reported in The Athletic today that she is reportedly going to be the host of all Netflix live sports programming. That would include, I guess, the NFL down the road. Not this Christmas, but maybe next year, because the NFL already has their host and already has their Netflix already has the talent in place for this Christmas. But maybe down the road for boxing, maybe down the road for other events. So keep an eye on that. So, but Elle Duncan is a known brand and a known quantity. She does a great job with the WNBA and the NCAA women's tournament. So she would reportedly have an opportunity to work for other networks, but I don't think ESPN would be happy going to Netflix. So they may release her from the contract, or maybe her contract is up with ESPN. But that's interesting news that Netflix would go to hire Elle Duncan, who was a quantity. She did a great job here in New England at Nesson before going to ESPN. So look for that, and we'll see if that comes to fruition.
Absolutely. Any other stories that caught you this past weekend that you want to bring it up before we wrap it up at the top of the hour?
Well, another silly dispute. Fubo now has lost the networks of NBC Universal. So another silly dispute just comes on the step, comes right after YouTube TV and Disney resolved their issue. ESPN was brought back last week on YouTube TV. So just in time for the Cowboys and the Las Vegas Raiders. So that was last weekend, but now another silly dispute comes about. So again, we just can't. We just for those of people who tried to hope that streaming would be a great alternative for cable and avoid these disputes. Unfortunately, as streaming services get more and more prevalent, unfortunately, the disputes continue. So again, the consumers are left holding the bag, and hopefully, those two entities will get back together and find a way to, you know, find some peace. At least for YouTube TV, all of their major negotiations are done. They have, they have Fox, they got NBC out of the way, and now they have an agreement with Disney. So hopefully there'll be some peace. Of course, I expect the prices to go up for all these streaming services, which are a one-time reasonably priced, but now they're just like cable. So anyway, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of which, maybe you could fill me in on this because obviously you went to MLS studios not too long ago.
Yep.
MLS is, I think, with their deal with Apple TV, they kind of removed the paywall.
They did.
Right.
It's a good move. It's a smart move by Apple. Apple does not release their figures on subscribers to MLS Season Pass, but starting for this playoff and also going forward, and also Apple now has a new contract in which they have now reduced the number of years. They now have an out after they had signed a 10-year contract. They now have an out after 7 years now, Stephen. So their contract will now probably go to 2029 after the season. But we'll see with Apple. I think it's a good move to remove MLS Season Pass. They now allow anybody who wants to watch without a subscription to Apple TV to watch MLS games. And it's a good move, especially in the wake, as we mentioned last week, that MLS will now match the European and the World Soccer calendar. They'll start in summer of 2027 and then go into the spring. So they'll go basically following the English Premier League, the Liga MXC. They will also follow the Liga 1 and also
basically pretty much every European
follow everybody. They're going to follow.
And then here in America, it's like NBA, NHL, a calendar schedule. Right.
It's a smart move. It really is, and they'll be able to get better players. We did mention that last week, and I think we're going to we'll try and get Taylor Twellman on again from Apple TV to talk about that move once the MLS Cup is finished.
Mm-hmm. So I think F1 is also going to Apple TV starting next year.
Yes, yeah,
right?
And I don't think you need a subscription. Although F1 TV, which is very popular, that'll be on Apple TV next year.
Okay, so it's no longer in the paywall. So you could just basically subscribe to Apple TV and just watch it as it is moving forward.
Or you don't need a subscription either. So I think that's a good move. So you can just go ahead and watch the games, and I think that's a good move. I don't know what they're going to do with baseball because baseball still needs a subscription, but I think that Apple will announce that next year, but in time for the baseball, that you do not need a subscription to watch the games. I think it's a good move.
Okay, well, that's a good thing. Hopefully, the league, which the quality of the league itself is somewhat stagnated still. In the wake of World Cup next year, hopefully this will give the league a shot in the arm, allowing people to watch the game itself more, although there are people who say this, that watching it in a manner of like the like the NFL Sunday Ticket it's a little difficult because you also want to watch for the local people. I don't think not many people in Dallas care much about LA or New York and other games, marquee-wise, because they want to watch and support the local team. So I think you still have to have like a local television deals for most of these teams, because for the Apple, the model itself isn't going to change, right? Because you're going to be able to pick and choose what game you want to watch and all of that, right?
Right. And you can also, what's great about the MLS is that you can listen to the radio broadcast. You can pick whichever the home or away, so you can get the local flavor of those broadcasts, and they're all in real time.
Okay. Well, that's good. I know the numbers from what I've been hearing hasn't really gone up or hasn't been as great as they tout it to be, whether it's Apple or MLS. So maybe their decision to finally get rid of the paywall is probably maybe not necessarily, them admitting, the numbers of subscription just hasn't been either great to begin with, or maybe the number has kind of plateaued and maybe has been kind of like slowly going downhill because of so many streaming services that every average fans have to subscribe and pay to, and maybe has gotten a little excessive, like you and I have been talking on this channel for quite some time. So I'm very curious to see how this move, is going to impact MLS, which coincides with the calendar moving, and then also the rumors of finding a successor to longtime commissioner Don Garber, who's been there at the helm for 20 almost 20 years and counting. So it's a very difficult and challenging time that the MLS find themselves in. So hopefully this is the first step for allowing fans to make it more accessible to their product. At the same time, they have to enhance and improve the product, going up against not just with professional sports leagues in this country, but also with the interest of other soccer leagues around the world as well. So anything else? Anything else you want to add, Ken?
No, I think that's it, Stephen. Again, appreciate the time, and hopefully we'll be back on our regular Sunday slot next week, and we'll review the games and preview Sunday Night Football, and I'm sure we'll talk about plenty of college football, which is going to be basically the last week of regular season football for the college football ranks before they go to the conference championships next weekend.
Yeah, very interesting. A lot of the college football game, it's a final week of college football. There could be more, coaches being fired. There could be more, clarity on some of the jobs. James Franklin took the Virginia Tech job. Lane Kiffin, does he stay or does he go to, LSU like it's been long rumored? Lane's somebody who just can't seem to, one of those crazy, girlfriend or ex-girlfriend who just keeps following you or just wants attention, and he just can't seem to get enough of it, no matter where he goes, or he just can't. Yeah. So we'll find out. This Saturday we'll get to college football season finale, and more NFL actions, obviously, this week with Thanksgiving holiday. All right, Ken, listen, thanks for your time as always, and enjoy your Thanksgiving holiday, wherever you might be, and, who are you going to be with? So, I'm going to be watching football all day, just like I've always been doing for the past 10 years or so here in the U.S. So have a wonderful Thanksgiving to you and your family. And for those who watched us tonight, thank you for, checking with us. I wish you and your family and loved ones a happy and safe Thanksgiving. And we'll see you this upcoming Sunday. We'll, follow us on our X, and we'll have more updates on this Sunday's scheduled show, and then also on YouTube channel to watch us live. Have a great evening, everybody. Thank you, Ken. Take care, everybody.
Thank you very much, and have a great Thanksgiving. Please be safe. If you're going to be driving this weekend, please make sure that you buckle up. Don't drink and drive. Also, if you're going to be traveling in the air, please be safe. Make sure you allow yourself plenty of time to get to the airport. So thanks very much for watching us. Thanks very much for all the people who watched us so far. 94 people who came in on a Monday night. Thanks very much. We really appreciate you, and we'll see you Sunday.